What's up, boxing world? Gotta come and tell you what I think were some of the most exciting heavyweight fights that I saw growing up. I don't really go too way back, watch them fights, pretty much from Muhammad Ali up, or Cassius Clay up is when I watch, when I really got into the sport. But one of the main fights that really just got me going into boxing was the first Evander Holyfield Riddick Bowe fight. And they were going at it from round one to round 12. If you just pull that up, I mean, you definitely won't be disappointed. That was one of the best fights in heavyweight history. I mean, the announcers were going crazy. Al Bernstein, Lennox Lewis was on the broadcast. I mean, crowd was up on their feet. They were just going at it. And that fight, Evander Holyfield came in at a pretty lightweight. I think he was like 205 or 208 or something like that. And Riddick Bowe was around 230, 235 or something. So Evander was giving up a big weight advantage to Riddick Bowe. And he held his own for most of the fight. He got knocked down, and he almost came back and knocked Riddick Bowe down. And like one of those later rounds, he hit Bowe, and Bowe kind of wobbled, but he was so much bigger. I guess he just gathered himself, and he was hungry that night. I'll give it to Riddick. He was hungry, and he took the belts from Evander Holyfield, and he couldn't stop talking. He just couldn't stop talking. And I thought Evander was doing too much bouncing that night. If you go back and watch some of Terry Norris's fights, another fellow San Diegan, he did a lot of bouncing around the ring, and that can, drain you, especially when you're fighting a big guy like Riddick Bowe. You need to save as much energy as you possibly can. And he was doing a lot of bouncing, and Riddick was starting to wear on him, and Riddick hit him with an uppercut, and you could just see Holyfield turn like, oh my gosh, I ain't got nothing left after that. But he's still, Holyfield, he's a true gladiator. He's a true warrior. He came back, and he was just going at it with Riddick, toe to toe. And it ended by decision, but they just had great trilogy fights. The second fight, Evander brought in Emmanuel Stewart for that fight, with the parachute man and everything. But Holyfield was winning that fight, and he was getting tired again. And I believe he said something like, actually, when the parachutists came into the ring and they had to stop the fight to see what was going on, that kind of gave him the rest he needed. So fair or not, it wasn't his fault. He came back and got his belts back from Riddick. The third fight, it was good. To me, it wasn't as exciting as the others, but, I covered this, I believe, in my video about the best fights from the 1990s, how Evander knocked Riddick Bowe down, but he was too tired to finish him off. But none of their fights, I would say, out of the trilogy, the best fight to me was the first. I don't know, maybe the second. I don't know. They're close. There's so much action, whole lot of action. But what's another heavyweight fight that I found had a lot of action? Let's see. I think it was Ray Mercer and Burt Cooper. Wow, go back and look that up. They went at anybody that fights Ray Mercer's in for a long night. That dude had a chin of steel. You hit him with punches, and he's just going to keep coming, Ray Mercer, underrated fighter. And he had a good jab, too. Could take a punch. And let's see. Foreman Holyfield, another great punch where Holyfield was landing punch after punch after punch on Foreman, and Foreman would not go down. In fact, Foreman never went down in his comeback career at all. He went down when he was younger, but when he came back, he wasn't falling. I mean, Foreman's a strong dude, carrying buses or trucks up hills with a rope while he's jogging. Foreman was a strong dude, still is, I'm sure. But that's a great fight. I believe it was in Atlantic City. I believe Trump put it on. That was just a great, great, great fight. Go back and watch that. It went to 12 rounds. Let's see what other fights were exciting. I'm talking where they're just throwing blows and not much dancing around, just slugging it out. Um, definitely Lennox Lewis versus Shannon Briggs. Shannon came out and kind of wobbled Lewis just a little bit, or caught. I think it was more of a balance shot, but it got Lewis's attention. That's a fact. And the crowd went crazy and everything, and they just went at it. Lewis had, I believe, he tried to get a bet going with Shannon Briggs that the winner would keep their dreads and the loser had to cut them, but Shannon didn't cut them at the time. He cut them years later. Let's go, champ. I like Shannon Briggs, by the way. And Shannon was talking recently about how strong Lennox Lewis was. And you see it right here. What does it say? WBC champ bombs out Briggs in a thriller. Would Lewis do this to Holyfield? They had a good fight, Lewis Holyfield, but it was so one-sided the first fight, and Lewis got cheated in the first fight. And then the second fight was closer, But action fights, Lewis Klitschko. Go watch that in LA. They were going back and forth. People thought Klitschko was dominating Lewis, and Lewis got stopped Klitschko, left him some bad gashes. Yeah, that was a good one. Let's see. What's some other good fights full of action? Moore Holyfield 2. That was a good fight. I think Holyfield knocked Moore down like 4 times or something like that. That was a real good fight. It's hard to remember like blow for blow what happened each round, but trust me, if you pull those fights up, you won't be disappointed. Evander Holyfield Bowe 1 and 2. Bert Cooper versus Ray Mercer. Lennox Lewis versus Ray Mercer. That was 3 fights on the card that night. It was Lewis versus Mercer, Holyfield versus Bobby Ches, and Tim Witherspoon versus Jorge Luis Gonzalez, the man that beat Lennox Lewis actually in the amateurs and beat Riddick Bowe, but as a pro. Oh yeah, go watch that fight. Riddick Bowe versus Jorge Gonzalez. Riddick had that dude in the corner for like almost the whole fight, it seemed. He had that haircut with the bald on top and the hair on the back, and it was just slapping him in the face. Riddick cleaned his clock. I mean, he got total, it was just total domination. Riddick Bowe cleaned his clock, and Jorge was never the same after that. He fought Tim Witherspoon. Tim Witherspoon knocked him out, and Jorge was a cocky guy too. Dude tried to actually stare me down when I went to Lennox Lewis's comeback fight after he lost to Oliver McCall in Sacramento, California. Lewis fought Lionel Butler. I was at the fight, and Jorge, I was on the floor, and Jorge was like maybe 8 rows in front of me, but the dude turned around and started mad dogging me. I was like, dude, what's this dude think he's doing? Like, I ain't scared of you, dude. And my buddy, Art, that I used to work with at FedEx, he looked at me, he's like, did you see that? I was like, yeah, I saw that. I was like, dude, you're not scaring nobody, homie. You are not scaring me. And he was just an egotistical guy, so when Riddick just mopped him, that just totally took his courage. He didn't want no more, and I don't know what he's doing now, but hope he's doing all right. But go check those fights out. If you can think of any, leave them in the comments. This is the J. Roos Theory. Beat down the like button, comment, share, subscribe, and be fearless. Yay, yay.